20 minute now. Take two. Okay, there we go. And if this
Hello.
doesn't work, I can just save it to YouTube and
Yeah.
load it in afterwards. I've learned not to get stressed when things go wrong.
The thing with being online and doing an online business is there's always going to be something that goes wrong somewhere along the line.
Like, weren't you like accidentally charging your hairdryer instead of your computer once
Oh
or
yeah,
something?
that one. And I was in a Zoom room and everyone got kicked out of the Zoom room, didn't they? Because my phone, I was like, I don't get it. It was charging, and then I realised it was my hairdryer. In my defence, that was probably my 13-year-old that had come in here and used my hairdryer and then not thought to plug back in. And of course, I wouldn't have thought about it. But yeah, that was funny. That ended up being. I remember your reply because when I then sent out the recording, it was in two separate videos because I cut out, and your reply was, "And this is why I love you."
And I'm still counting the ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you're just so I'm just turning my light up a bit. Sorry, everyone can see up my nose. That's better. It's just like people are so scared to show their true selves, and that's what we're talking about. Being
Yeah.
visible
Yeah.
involves actual real vulnerability as opposed to what people think vulnerability is. Vulnerability is just saying, okay, screw that up a little bit. Never mind.
I think the more I've lent, I've allowed myself to lean into being fully myself. The best part of it is the clients that I've got as a result are the clients that I'd have a drink with, I'd go down the park with our
Yeah,
kids, or
you'd be
they're the
friends.
people that I would be friends with in real
Yeah,
life. And so but that's not, it's not like I set the intention of attracting people who I would be friends with as such, although now I've really realized that actually the best ideal client concept is a mate. I've now
yeah,
realized that actually that's actually, I'm just running with that concept. But that has only happened to me because what I did instead was I lent into being myself. And those people who can forgive me for plugging in my hairdryer and not realizing, and cutting off in the middle of a training session and just being like, oh yeah, that's the sort of thing I do. That's the thing that I've messed up.
Well, I
And
mean,
yeah,
in
it
that
comes.
same vein, I've realized that, we had this first live that lasted 2 minutes, what wasn't working, and now we've gone into this one, and I haven't allowed you to introduce yourself yet.
No, we've
So,
just yes, maybe we should start there.
yeah.
We just go with the flow. So Lisa Barry Online here. Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me. I run the Mission Led Content Academy, which is for business owners who want to write better content without being arseholes. And so, yeah, that pretty much sums me up. It's my whole thing around mission led content, which I've developed over. I thought I'd nailed it when I came up with the concept. I was like, oh my God, one of those 3 o'clock in the morning moments. So I was like, this is what I'm going to talk about all the time. This is my thing. This is what I want to always do forever and ever and ever. And then I look back at the content I created then and I cringe a bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah,
Mm,
that's so old. That's
right.
so old.
And
How do I put
there's a Ira Glass quote. I don't know if you've ever listened to Ira Glass, the This American Life podcast. He's one of my most favorite people, and he has a famous quote that I repost from time to time, which is all about how like he wishes someone would have told him when he was first starting out that like to begin with, you're not that great. He says like you have killer taste, you have the love for what you're doing, hold on to that. Like that your taste is the reason why you got into the game, and it's still killer, but it's good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment. And a lot of people never get past that phase, they quit.
yeah,
And he
and
said,
that's
like,
because they
everyone that
are.
does this creative work, they know that they're falling short, but everyone goes through it. And it's just a phase, and you've got to know that it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is just to do a lot of it. Whatever the work is, do huge
That is
volumes of it.
so, I love that. That's a really, like, that whole thing of knowing that you're going to be a bit shit.
Yes.
Like how liberating is that?
I have it like in my notes. I wonder if I can share it on the screen. A bunch of people like in my group have like seen it over and over again because I do keep reposting it. Um, but
Good.
that's the
Sharing
word,
stuff.
liberating. No, that's not the right screenshot. That's from a different thing. Um,
It's getting dangerous now if it's sharing any screenshot. Gosh
and I
no.
get really nervous. I'm not
Gonna
going to
come.
try. Yesterday, I was like broadcasting my laptop to a projector and I had to find something on my desktop. And I was so nervous.
That's in front of a room full of 15 people
Yeah,
who
so
are
I
all
had to kind of, yeah, I had to go through my desktop and find something specific, and it was a bit nerve-wracking. Oh, here it is. So
yeah,
it's going over our faces. Let's get it down a bit. So it's like he says at the end, put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you know that you're going to finish one story because he's a storyteller. It's only by going through a volume of work that you're going to catch up and close that gap between where you are and where you want to be, and the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while. You just have to fight your way through that. I'm like, I love you,
I
Ira.
really, really love that. I'm gonna have to look. So it's Ira as in a man
Ira.
Ira. Because my
Oh,
daughter's
he's.
called Ira, so that's why
Ah,
because Ira means snow in Welsh. So
ah. There's a lot of
EIRA.
Americans called Ira. They probably don't know what it means. So where should we begin?
I've got a
Tell me
list.
about this, like when yeah, I asked you about like your
Talking
title.
in.
This is your title about being fearlessly visible, and you know that I quote you a lot, and it's interesting. I was thinking about it today when I was doing the laundry that in Judaism there's this concept that if you're quoting someone, let's say a great rabbi has said something, you always quote the source, and I think there's two reasons for that. One is so that you're not plagiarizing, you're not taking credit for someone else's genius. It keeps you humble and like giving credit where credit is due, like, and saying like this didn't come from me, this came from someone else, so that you don't like get too big for your boots and yeah, and that you don't like try and pass something off as your own when it isn't. So
But what's really interesting about that as well, though, Sarah, is that I do exactly the same, and I'm often referring to people. In fact, I was on a call this morning with a group of clients, and I was on a call this yesterday with them, and one of the people were in both ones, and I started saying what they'd said, and I was like, "This was Rachel, by the way. She's in the room. Talk to this
yeah, and
woman."
not everyone does that.
No, no, not at all. But I think when I think of how, that process that Ira quote about doing the thing and doing the thing to get better at the thing and continuing to have that focus and that drive on the love of what you're doing and the development of that love. When I talk about mission-led content, one of the first places we start is our mission, right? So it's about being driven by our mission. And the
Mm.
amount of people that will say, oh, it's not quite right, or it's not quite perfect, or then we go on to look at ideal clients, and then we go on to look at, a content plan, and we look at all these things and be, oh, it's not quite right. So then they think, well, they can't go forward because they've not got it quite right here. And it's like through the evolution of doing it, that's actually how it develops. If you sit there with it all in your head, it stays in your head. The actual speaking of it, the actual using your voice, building relationships with the people who you want to serve anyway, all of that. But part of that is that through that process, through those conversations, you pick up these wisdoms and you pick up these ideas and perspectives and concepts and phrases. And so actually what you end up with, like your mission, your visibility, your when people see you and hear you and think about you, the things that they think about is made up of a number of things. It's made up of your passion, your genius, but also the things that have inspired you that make you the whole of who you are now. So we're all parts of other people. We're
Yeah.
parts of
Oh yeah.
our ancestry even. We show up from thousands and thousands of years, but also our experiences to date, and so taking those inspiration, I think, is is really powerful. So I wouldn't want to pass it off as my own,
Yeah.
because that diminishes the growth journey that I've been on and the people that have helped me along the way. Like, I wouldn't be who I am today without those connections and those conversations and that inspiration. So it's powerful. It's powerful stuff. Like, when you lean into, like, how can I let other people inspire me, and how can I inspire others? And you kind of take that thing, we're all doing it together and we're all on this journey together. And that takes courage, because we live in a world that thrives on division, especially the online world.
Yeah.
Especially social media thrives on division. So to support and to elevate each other is a revolutionary act in social media.
That is absolutely true. And tell me, like, what notes have you written down in terms of being fearlessly visible in 2023?
So if we're going to be fearlessly visible in 2023, the first thing, in my opinion, from a mission-led content point of view, is we need to get out of our own ego, out of our own way. That whole thing of I'm not good enough, imposter syndrome, comparativitis, because you're looking at these people maybe that have done it for years and years, or even somebody who's showing a half truth about their success, and all of this stuff that we get online. And so that really, we then allow our ego to get in the way. Who we are focusing on is the people that we want to help, and those friends, those people who our ideal client, who should really be our friend, because I can't remember if I said that bit in this recording or the one we did.
I know, who knows? Yeah. Don't remember.
Just a thing that I say, I think your ideal client should be like your friends, because you may as well work with people who you absolutely love. Like, what? Otherwise, just go and get a job.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be stuck with a load of people you don't pick and you don't really like, then, you know, there's a load of places.
Wait, so you said just now that we can get stuck with comparisonitis, and I thought I'd ask you, what are your tricks for, like, when, because it does happen, because we're human. So it happened to me the other day when I saw someone offering something very similar to my offering. It kind of sent me down a little black hole for a while.
Yeah.
But I'd been on a call with someone who had just said, there's no better than or worse than, there's just different, and you are different. And that is what got me out. So what is it for you?
Well, in the actual moment, there's been a few things that I've practiced over the time, because this is, I am an undiagnosed ADHD person, I believe, and I believe that I really struggle with that RSD, which is that rejection sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I can take things really personally, and it's just horrible in life in general, but on your business and your life relies upon you putting yourself in a position where somebody could criticize, and then you decide to be yourself, and somebody can criticize. It's one thing.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, don't take it personally. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah, that's why like, I used to be fine in jobs where I had a role, because I was given a role, so I was almost hiding behind that role. But when you step into the online business, you have a personal brand, then there's nothing to hide behind. You are
That's such a good point. Yeah.
It's so hard to marry that. But my initial thing in the moment is, I have to ask myself, do I need to remove this person from my space? Now, I have unfollowed people who have been very good friends, who I've adored, and I've unfollowed them because I've just found their content too good. like it's just really like, oh my God, I love you, but I'm actually, especially if they're in the same industry, like you said, and actually they're in the same industry as you, they provide a brilliant set, and you want to support them. You don't want to be thinking competitive thoughts about them, because they're somebody that you really like, and you love their process, and the whole point is, this is coming from a place of fear, because you feel threatened, and you feel like you're being attacked. That's the physical response. That's the sort of fight and flight response. So I guess in that moment I choose flight, and I may unfollow, but it's not a long-term solution. And it's not always a solution. So I was honest with a friend once and said that I'd done this, and they got upset. They did get upset, and we've had conversations about it and things. But they felt like I was like, say, abandoning them and saying, and it wasn't. It was a case of, you're too blooming good. Like I need to be able to focus on my own stuff, because sometimes that person would write stuff and I would be like, oh, I was going to write about that, but now I feel like I'm copying. And that post was virtually formed in my head. And it just, for my own mental health at that point, but it's not a long-term solution, because you can only, you're just removing yourself from doing the work. You're avoiding doing the work. So there are times when I can't mentally, physically, emotionally, perhaps financially, because I'm in like a launch, I can't step back and do the work. I've haven't got the time for the work. So I just need to deal with what I need to deal with. And so at that point I remove certain people. And it's the same to go with anybody who is disrupting my peace online, my sense of calm and joy and connection and love. Anyone
Right,
that shows.
Yeah, so those are like two different things, because one is your brain is just being an asshole. Like in the scenario that I had the other day, my brain was just being nasty, because it sent me down this whole spiral of, all everyone that might have come to me is going to go to them, and then I kind of sat and analysed it and thought, I actually don't really believe that that's true. I really don't believe that that's true.
A brilliant coach I used to work with used to say about, you write all this stuff down, Nicola Buckley, write all this stuff down, and then you just go through the highlighter, like data, drama, and I just love it.
Data and drama.
Right,
writing that down.
At times I'm literally catch myself, something's not coming out in my head, and I'm thinking something, I'm like, hang on, Lise, is that data or drama? And it's just this little hook in my head that can stop that cycle. Cycle. I don't even have to write it down now. It's become such a brilliant thing.
That's brilliant. All right, so what else have you got for us?
So there's removing, but there's also doing the work on why that comparativitis is there. Like, what is it? What is it? Is it, sometimes it can be something really simple, like say somebody has got more, they've been in the business for 10 years. Now, if you keep hiding from them, you're not going to have the time to look and go, hang on, they've been in 10 years longer than me. So of course, their stuff is going to, just like what Ira said, so when you've got that perspective, then they become an inspiration. They become someone to look up to. Yeah. Because you've taken the time to go, well, let's look at the data, not the drama side. So then that's the process. But it could be that maybe that person reminds you of somebody, or maybe that person, there's something that is triggered from some childhood play you were in, where I've done a lot of this work. I had this one issue of everyone laughing at me and everyone judging me. And I did this belief coding session with a friend of mine, one of my very first online business owning friends, Michelle Childs. And she did this belief coding. And it just, all you do is you pick a memory to go back where you felt that feeling before. And you just remember the memory and you go into that space.
I'm wondering if I did this with you. Did you? I've never experienced this with someone else. Someone else did this in a group.
Oh, so I have had, there's a lady called Zaria who is brilliant, and she did brain spotting, which I invited her to do it because she said it can help you get over, like, I think it was to do with consistency, if you're struggling with consistency on social media. Yes, so I've never done any one-to-one work with Zaria. Right. I've only had but that, she really impressed me then. If I hadn't got this relationship that I've had with Michelle since, like I say, she was my very first bit. So we started skill swapping right at the beginning, and we still do now, one of those relationships. But she's done this work on me, and it's been amazing to think this one memory I had was of it was a nativity play, and I was the Mary, and I threw baby Jesus into the thing, not meaning to. I just was I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was in nursery. I was 3. It must have looked so cute. And all the parents laughed, but I thought they were laughing. I couldn't understand it. And I couldn't understand why my mum and dad were laughing.
Oh,
And so I
God.
went back into the memory and made a new imagining. I mean, it's not like you think this is really happening. You know that you're just
Yeah.
adjusting the memory. And in my memory now, I've got this other side where where I go up to my mum and my dad and say, "Come on, that's not fair. Stick up for her." And then they turn around and tell all the other parents to stick up. So it's just
Very
so
powerful.
this
Yeah.
all comes from your question, what do you do about comparative ISIS? And now I'm like going into a 3-year-old memory and telling off my parents. But it's about knowing that sometimes it's just surface level and it's just simple. And
Hmm.
other times this work requires us to go deeper, to go to those places that we don't normally want to look.
That's
And
very
that's
true. And I think that's a lot of people's blocks with visibility.
mm,
I think they're avoiding addressing it. People
yeah,
that are talking about, I don't want to show my face on camera, I don't have anything interesting to say, all these objections that come up,
right.
they give
It's
those
not
objections and then that's it. It doesn't get addressed. And
mm,
really, like, you can't progress past that if
no,
you don't address what is stopping you from being visible. And whoever it was that did this very similar exercise with me, I also picked out parts of my childhood where people laughed at me and also went back and played out the scenario in a different way, or
it's
just
amazing.
gave myself grace and said, "You were 5." They
Yeah.
laughed because they thought it was cute. They wouldn't laugh
Yeah,
because they thought you were an idiot.
our perception of those same stories. So if I'd gone to my parents and said to them now, I've I've had this memory and I can't believe you did this. You trying to do videos on social media, and because of that moment when I was 3 that you didn't tell all the other parents in the school hall,
Yep.
I'm now damaged. I mean,
But it's
thank
so,
you.
like, when we talk about things being subconscious, like this scenario that came up out of nowhere, I had been reading uh, instructions on how to do a magic trick, and it said what you need is half a dozen oranges in a brown paper bag.
You saying this?
Yes,
Yes,
see,
going. I
see, I thought you'd
remember this.
remember. And
We
what?
were
And basically, you take one of the oranges, you mark it with an X, and you can feel it. And when you do the magic trick, you can feel the one that has the X. Da, 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 da. So I like literally walked up to my grandma, my grandpa, my mum, my dad, my brother, my uncle. They're all sitting around the table. You can totally picture them. And I'd been quiet for hours, and suddenly went, "Can I have half a dozen oranges in a brown paper bag?" Oh my God, I would kill myself laughing if one of my kids did that. Like, it's just hilarious.
yeah,
Like,
and it's not. They were not intentionally ruining your future business
right, but
concept.
like seriously, like that was one of the main reasons why I didn't want to open my mouth.
Because if you
And
open your
then
mouth at that point, little
someone's
Sarah
gonna
was
laugh at you.
if you open your mouth and you ask for something, someone will laugh at you. And that
Yes.
we all have, and you can see how small. I mean, I've often thought, mother of 3 here, I know we've both got our brood, and I think, God, how have I messed them up? Like when you start doing this work as a parent, you go, there's no way I haven't messed my kids.
Right.
But
And
when
one day they'll tell you,
yes, 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 because I've
and then
I've
you'll
had
pay for
very
therapy.
in-depth conversations with my mum actually. This is quite, she struggles. She's like, I don't like. I start talking about trauma. I don't like it. Sounds like I traumatized you. But this is, and I
Yes.
suppose we can. I mean, I mentioned the word trauma, and the beauty of what I do is I work with, and you must be the same. The people I work with are phenomenal. The people that I work with are so expert in their areas and they're so infectious to be around, and they teach me so much about what they do. So like I've got like trauma specialists and people
Right.
who do this. I think that's one of the things that's made this process for me is when I started to do mission led content, I started to attract these sorts of people. And I learned, I mean, I'm not an expert. Sometimes I say stuff and I say I'm not an expert. I've just watched a load of TED Talks, or it's like I'm obviously a neurologist now. I know how the brain works. So I'm fully aware. I'm just doing exactly what you said. I'm influenced, like we said in the beginning, about how our visibility grows, how our profile grows, how our brand grows, is influenced from other people. And that creates our whole, and that's being being inspired by my clients, by the people I'm. That's so the original question of how to be fearless in 2023. I'm going to that original question. That's what it was about. Focusing on the people you're working with, because that is where the magic is. That's where you connect as human beings, and you just all the bullshit that's online is so. 2021, I built a whole business around being visible online and courageous visibility. So it used to be courageous. I've changed it to fearless this year, and that's I'm still in that journey of figuring out how important that change of word is. But I know it's go from courageous visibility to fearless. I feel we have to step up. I think that's it. We have to step up. We have to step up into fearless visibility.
So, but how does someone do that if they're terrified of being in front of the camera? Like, I mean, I know, like,
next steps all the time. It like all of these. I cannot believe what I've done. If I look back, I can't believe what I've done. It was so out of who I was and where I was. Like, time of year at the moment, I get very reflective, and I'm very, very aware of the distance I've traveled. But most of the time, the steps are so small that it's only when you look back and you go, how did that happen? How? I don't even, who was that person? Because I seem to have changed so much. And that is just what is your next step? What's the one thing you need to do now to just move forward? It's all what I saw this, wasn't it on you? You had it on a screen behind you in the reel, and it said progress. What is it? Progress. What's this? A phrase. It's about practice makes progress.
Practice makes progress. There's this wonderful audio. This guy, Les Brown, I think his name is. He says, "What does practice make?" And the whole audience says, "Perfect." And it's like, absolutely not. Dismantle that belief. Practice makes progress.
Yes. Wow. And yes. So you had, because in the reel I didn't hear that, I just saw that on the thing, and it really caught my attention, because that is a true thing. I really believe that and that's part of the fearless visibility. To me, is going to mean something completely different to somebody who's 10, because I've been doing this for more than a decade now. Right. So somebody who's 10 years behind me,
and they're just starting.
Their fear. It took me, Jesus. Oh my God, how long did it take me? About 4 years to even put a Facebook page on. I was completely invisible.
Wow.
If anyone asked me what I did, I would say I work online.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people look at where you are and they don't realize what a journey you've been on. It's like there's this guy, Brock Johnson, who is a big Instagram guru. But what they don't see they see Brock's followers, I don't know, 90,000, who knows. But what they don't see is the journey that he's been on. He started when he was so young on Vine and YouTube and all these channels that don't exist anymore. And people followed him from platform to platform because they enjoyed him. So by the time he got to Instagram, he had all this loyal following already. And people are looking at where he is now and not understanding where he began. And he showed some of his old videos and it was so bad, really bad. And I was thinking about my journey from hiding to someone, who the hell knows who she was? I wish I could remember. She ran a visibility kind of show up on video for 5 days within a group of introverts.
Could her name have been Georgia?
I don't even think it would ring a bell.
You can't even remember that far.
It was like 6-7 years ago.
But I was in a group that did that.
Right, and that's how it started for me.
Somebody called Georgia. I wonder if it was the same one.
Maybe if you show me a picture of her, I'd remember. And it was just very gentle. And like when you talked about how to be fearlessly visible in 2023, depending on where you are in your journey, let's say you're at step 1, like something like that. Like, I'm running something, a free like visibility video. It's not a challenge, whatever we want to call it, starting 1st of January. And I've already written out the prompts and put them in the group of what they're going to be. And it's just
I,
like getting people to talk. What's that?
sounds amazing.
So it's let's see if I can find what the prompts are. Instead of like the
Sounds
usual stuff. Oh, here we go, found it.
what a good
So
year
it's
to start.
1st of January is going to be, what did you want to be when you were younger? What do you love about your job today, and are they at all related? Everyone could talk about that. Everyone can talk
Mm.
about that. And then the next one is, what does success mean to you? Which is so interesting because everyone has a different opinion. Um, if you could choose any person in history to be your imaginary friend, who would it be and why? And I keep arguing with myself about this. What's the best business advice you were ever given? And then the final day is, if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be? So I feel like maybe
Oh,
it gets a bit
do you
harder at
know
the
what? This
end.
is really hard now, Sarah, because I'm really upset at me because I'm planning to not come back to social media until the 9th.
Right.
So much fun that it actually really makes me want to come back sooner.
Oh,
And
good.
this is like, this bit of time is like my really it's the only time I have for the last 3 years really boundaried the Christmas, this what, like from like next week until the kids go back to school in where I live on the 9th of January. So
Oh,
that
wow.
period, 3
Right.
years, I remember the first time I did it feeling really weird taking pictures because I thought, what's the point? No one's going to see it. Like, and then I thought, this is why I need to come off I need
Yes.
to have time because my thought for it. If everything that happens I have to see through a lens of content, then my life is messed up. Like there's
Right.
something with, and I think that's also like being fearlessly visible also is also being like, it is another revolutionary act to really take care of yourself. And I know that I don't always do this. I know this is probably one of the things I find the hardest, but that's why this little bit of I create these really sacred things that I do, and that it's not enough. It's never enough. But there's so
Right.
many things on me. There's only me and my there's so many people that want a piece of it.
Yeah.
and my business is a big piece of it. It has to be for my own mental health, and it has to be for my financial health because I'm the main earner.
Right.
So yeah, there's just being fearlessly visible means taking care of yourself enough so you can keep showing up, because if you burn out, you're no good to anyone.
It's such
And
a good
that's a
point. Yes.
really important part of the
So
puzzle.
that you have that energy. Like when I was teaching my workshop yesterday, I was saying you need to be able, like when you're making reels, it has to be sustainable. Just keep thinking of that word, sustainable. What is sustainable for me? Like if you go and look up how many reels should I post a week, you will have 100 different replies, and some people will say 14, and some people will say 2, and it doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what you think and what works for you. How many children do you have? Do you have a spouse? Do you have community responsibilities? Like there are so many things, so many factors. So it's all about what you can sustain so that you can start to get this momentum going and start producing more like good quality stuff, and start enjoying it. Like I now enjoy making films. And yes, they're called reels, but I'm making films and they're short, and I'm not Steven Spielberg, but I'm enjoying it.
And they're really, really good.
And they're fun.
They're
Thank
so
you.
good that I'm gradually getting closer to them. Because this is for so much that we talk about. I was following that whole what you were saying, and I'm like, this is why I love you, Sarah. Like that's what's going on through my head. Like we're so on the same page. And then you come to the bit about, I mean, I love making videos. And then I'm like, oh, that's the bit where we're different. Like, so
And I never used to, but it's become that habit of now I love it.
Yeah. And I know the journey that I've been on with everything else. I know it's totally possible. Like when we say things like, I don't like that, or I'm not good at
Yeah.
that, or we make these statements, but those statements are their own. They might have truth in them, but they're only that truth for that moment. So
Right, it's like I'm shit at maths, and there is definitely some truth to that statement.
no,
But
I can
yeah,
say, yeah,
I've
yay.
managed to figure out discount coupon codes, and I've managed to actually make a spreadsheet, and I can do my accounting. So there are parts of things that are in the maths world that I
Yeah,
can
I
do,
haven't
right?
done that. Anyway,
Oh
I'm
dear.
really bad at that
Do you
stuff.
have anything else on your list? I can't believe like we're
Okay,
already
so
past 35 minutes. It's crazy.
I know. Well, it. I'm not even going to look at the list because this
Okay.
just the main. I think that the thing that I put at the top of the list, the thing, it's like, right, what do I? Because when you asked me, I haven't done a conversation like this in a while, and I used to. In fact, I think this was the first time me and you connected was when I did a
Brand
live.
hacks.
Yeah, and I did my. It was about. I think it was courageous visibility. I called it. That was what it was, and I feel
I've
like
got it. I've got it written down on my computer always.
it.
5
Tell me
blocks
what.
that show people from stop people from showing up and being courageously visible and getting leads.
Wow.
Should I read it to you?
I let's. I
Go
think I
on.
remember. Let's see. Let's see. Oh my God, this is so funny. This is a real test, and this is at a point. Bear in mind, just before I say this is at a point in my journey where I'd already made massive steps. Like, I mean, I was talking about courageous visibility, and yet now I look back on that and I recognize the steps I've taken since. And it's like, if that feels this fit person that we're talking about now feels like another Lisa,
Wow.
and that's when I met you. But that's in many ways. I'm not measuring that as like in that first part, it was about real growth, expansion, actually saying I had a business. All of those, I didn't even telling people I had a business. I thought people would think I was pretentious. Like it
Isn't
was
that
ridiculous.
interesting? Can we
It
just
was
pause for a second? Because that's so common that people say that they
really. I
don't
feel
want to really
like
say that they have a business because they feel like they're lying. So I'm like, well,
yeah,
what is it? Is it a hobby? And they're like, no, it's not a hobby. So then is it a business? And they feel like a phony because they've created it themselves. No one's given it to them. And because they've created it themselves, they feel like a phony.
and because I've never studied business, so I
Right.
don't. How can I be a
So you
business?
don't get to call yourself
I
a
don't
business.
know
Yes.
business. I didn't go. I studied teaching, and I was a coach for young
Right.
people.
So who are
I
you?
am I'm not a business person. And I mean marketing, even like it's like the most I just thought marketers had like big mobile phones and big shoulder pads from the 80s. Like that was the image I had in my head.
See, the madness that goes on in our brains when it comes to showing up and being visible. It's so fascinating.
Yeah,
Okay,
isn't it
carry
just
on.
okay, so just saying that this was I've grown emotionally into a completely different person since then, and as a result, my business has evolved in a way that's I is has there's been massive teething problems in that I've had to deal with some stuff, but I'm so happy with where it is now because it's a journey. It's always a journey, and through that you got to have the ups and the downs and the wiggly bits. But let's go back to then. So this was what 2020. Is this 2020 or 2019?
2019.
Okay, so yeah, that was massive that year for me. Okay, so 2019, 5 steps to get out of your own way. I might not get it in the right order, but it was definitely oh my God, I can almost see them written
I can help you.
Give me a clue.
Visibility is the beginning of the sentence.
Visibility is not vanity.
Yes, it's business. And this is
Visibility
when I quote Rabbi Lisa, like, visibility isn't vanity, it's business. You're in business, you want people, you want clients, you want them to pay you. And they're not going to know you exist if you're not visible.
Yeah, it's simple as that. You can't have a business if people don't know you're there. You're just sitting on your own in the dark. Like there has to be that exchange, and it's not about how you do it. It's not about where you do it, but you've got to do something.
Yeah.
And social media and the online world is an incredible tool. If it wasn't for this tool, I would not be able to, like, physically, my mother in her, like, having me, my grandmother, they never had the ability to do this. This has we didn't come from anything. We had nothing.
Well, I would say to my clients, we don't use the yellow pages anymore.
No.
We have
Yes.
social media and it is free. However annoying and glitchy it may be, and however much we moan about algorithms, it's free.
Yeah. And if you're in
End of
business,
story.
it's just a tool. And yes, there are, like, from a mission point of view, we can use it for something amazing, but we have to get our ego out of the way first and we have to be like, well, this is my job. This is what I've got a vision for my business, and this is part of the vision. I've got to understand this. So yeah, so visibility isn't
So there was
vanity.
that.
Okay.
Then there's, I have to read them because I probably have to take my son to a lesson in about 10
Oh my
minutes.
God, sorry, I'm so sorry.
The second one is that not everyone sees everything, so you can show up more than once. And not just
Yeah.
showing up more than once, not everyone sees everything means, oh, I posted about that in my story. Okay, 30 people saw your story, post about it again. Like, I posted a reel about that 4 months ago. Okay, that's
Yeah.
nice. Now repost it. Which brings us to the next point, which is that repetition is good. Marketing is basically sharing the same focus message relentlessly in different ways. And I always big up the big brands. Like, do we like complain that McDonald's keep repeating themselves or that Coca-Cola keep repeating themselves? No, we don't. Like, no one. First of all, no one should be complaining that you're repeating yourself as long as you're doing it in different ways. And if they do complain, then what the hell do you care? They're assholes. Yeah. And then the next one is, which I always forget that you said, which is start where you are. And I started saying this right at the beginning. Don't try and do everything right now. Set your own personal visibility intentions, but also not trying to do everything means, like, you don't have to have the mailing list and the email sequence and the link tree and everything all sorted on day one. It's not possible. Just pick somewhere.
That's part of, and recognizing that every step you take, you're being fearless, because every step you take is a risk. And you know that, which is why there's parts of your brain and parts of your body and parts of your nervous system that will freak out at different points.
Yes.
It's trying to keep you safe.
Yes, which means that it matters and it means it's good and that you need to keep going.
Exactly. And it's
the final one is consistency is what manifests leads and money in the bank.
Yeah.
And we forget about this whole money in the bank thing and being paid.
Yeah, I talk about that less now, I must admit, because I suppose at that point that was the only thing that really mattered to me. So that was because I needed to.
Yeah, but like I know people that run businesses and they are terrified to ask to be paid or to talk about money or to raise their prices. I spoke to someone who said, I haven't raised my prices in 8 years. Like, are you kidding me?
Do you know what? There's a real serious point here about money, though, that I think is important to end on. I know the whole point is fierce visibility, and sometimes to be fearless, it's also to face the truth. It's to understand, like, and look at things really, like, say, this is where I am, and see things as they are, and take like, we know we have our own perspectives and our own biases of our situation, but it's really important that we know where we are and are fearless with being able, because then if we don't know what's really causing the problem, we get really stuck. We need to take those moments just to, ask ourselves the difficult questions and be prepared to do the hard work.
And that's the thing. It's difficult and hard, which is why so many people give up.
Yeah. But money-wise, do the work on money because there's a lot of work to do on money.
Yeah, I have a whole other digital post-it note from Laura Pauner all about money mindset, and it's so interesting because one of the things that I can't find the right post-it note, but whatever, one of the things that she said is that when you're coming from a place of frantic energy and desperation, it repels people. People can feel it and it's repellent. And it's so interesting because it's so true.
Yeah, it is. And so that's where the mission, so it's so true. But my God, when you are broke and you've got bills to pay and you've got kids to feed and their they need new shoes, and you're like, shit, what am I going? I need money, right? When you're in
it's
that
very difficult not to be frantic.
Whereas why mission-led content comes in, because you connect to the people that you want to serve, you connect to your mission, you ground yourself in that. It doesn't take the panic away, but it allows you to just shine the spotlight in another part of you and make that part visible. And that is fearless to do that when you're in that state, to go, I see where I am, I know where I am, I'm not being unrealistic, but to get out of it, I need to focus here, and I need to shine that part of me. And the most rewarding and beautiful way to do it is to start connecting with other humans and focus on the person you want to serve, because that person will then show up in your life and bring you more than just the financial gain, because it's that is what life is all about. It's the connections we make, and as mission-led business owners, that drives us as much as the money. And that was a big lesson that I had to learn, was that the money wasn't the be all and end all. It's very necessary.
It's necessary. It's just like this piece that sometimes actually gets ignored, as opposed to being the main focus, which is what you're talking about. There are other people that I've connected with where they're like poor struggling artist type personality of, oh, money. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You actually need to charge.
You can't live on air.
Don't worry about that.
But getting that balance is a challenge. So, when it's also about fearless visibility, isn't just about that online persona. So that's where we're laying. So I know you got to pick up your son, but it's showing up and being prepared to show up in your whole self, which means doing work on your whole self.
Yes.
So yeah.
And it never ends.
And it never ends. As Denise, here's a good quote to finish with, which is hilarious, brilliant. Denise Duffield Thomas, the Money Woman. You know the Money Woman.
I'm Australian looking it up now.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Okay, Denise Duffield Thomas.
I don't think I know her. No.
Denise Duffield Thomas, Money Bootcamp woman. She said, another level, another devil. And I always used to quote her when she say that, another level, another devil. And then I actually watched one of her earlier videos, which was shit. And she said in there, she was quoting another level of a devil from her mentor. And I always thought,
she's definitely not made that quote up. There's another devil at every level. It's an American quote.
Now, me and all the people I know would go, yeah, well, you know what DDT would say, another level, another devil, and we totally thought it was her until we heard her say it. So that's really, really interesting, and a nice. It's another point. It's a real point. It is a point. Another level, another devil. But yeah, it's just keep going. It never ends. Enjoy the ride.
Like laundry.
Yeah,
it never ends. So just enjoy it. Oh, thank you so much, my darling. It's been lovely to chat to you. I could carry on all day, but
we have really put the world to rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
everything's fine now. Thank you. I'll meet you in person one day, and we'll get to have a big hug, right?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Be amazing, absolutely amazing. Right, I think I'm going to go to a Christmas concert now.
Enjoy.
I hope that's what it is. Take care. Bye.